technical debt is a socio-technical problem, because it's about this team with this code wants to build this feature. And it's not just the team or the code, it's the combination of both. And while a really grungy code base that other teams may struggle with, this team knows it really well and they can get there. So it's about the whole context of where you need to be. And the idea is that you take a shorter direction now, fully aware of what the limits are. And again, originally it was more about missing out features rather than just jamming in horrible stuff. With the full awareness that you're going to have to come back to this and that this will be something you have to address later on. So a couple of things happened over time. One was that the technical debt metaphor turned into this thing about bad code rather than inappropriate code, shall we say. The other thing that happened was, and we all did this, we talked about it in terms of taking out a loan with interest. And of course the interest would compound, and if you didn't do something about it, eventually you go broke. And the catch with that is that if you've ever worked in a system of any size, it doesn't entirely work, because you know that there's a lump of code over there that's just horrible, but it does the job, and as long as you cover in concrete and never talk to it again, it's fine. There is no interest payment. So Chris came up with this metaphor, because he's worked in the financial markets, he came up with another explanation, which is in terms of options. And you buy options and they get called and stuff. But another explanation of that is thinking in terms of risk, managing risk. So if you're aware that you've got this lump of concrete that you're never going to touch, that's fine. It's not a high risk thing. Bit over here that's in the middle of where everything's changing is a much higher risk. And so another way of thinking about this is in the way that people look at hurricane prediction, which is something there's a lot of at the moment. And if you think of the way that people work, societies work with hurricanes, is you know where it is today, you have a reasonable idea where it is tomorrow, where it's going to be tomorrow, and then as the days go on, the cone gets wider and wider, and you have to worry about where it's going to hit land. So the ways you cope with hurricanes are things like you have an awareness of the landscape and the coastal area, and which bits are more risk than others, which bits are below sea level, and so forth. You're also aware of which bits maybe the levees need propping up a bit, or the dikes, whatever. So you're aware where you have to put the effort in. And you put a lot of money into monitoring and into processes so that when something bad happens, you can respond. And if you think of it in terms of, well, we're heading in that general direction, it's a bit of this and a bit of that, that looks like a really dangerous point, we should do something about that. You can be much more focused in the way you respond, because most situations where you end up with lots of technical debt, you haven't got time to clean everything up. You just have to stop the world. But what you can do is focus your attention on the most risky parts, and that will change over time as the hurricane moves and the cone changes.